Blue was easily my favorite color in Set 6, focusing on two of my favorite characters, the Ultimate Fusion Warrior Vegito and the deranged monster creation Majin Buu. Both the decks were super fun to play, and I feel like, to me, it just felt like they were... I don't know, it felt like they had the tools to be a good deck, but they were lacking in being able to pull the sequencing off in a sufficient amount of time for it to become a tier 1 deck. Vegito, on the one hand, was just lacking with a decent finisher, and all the Vegitos that we currently had didn't really flow well with the deck. There wasn't a lot of synergy. Theoretically, you could use it with the other Vegito's abilities that came in this set, but that just meant that the game was going to carry on longer than you wanted it to, and most of the time turns didn't go that far to be able to take advantage of the older Vegitos. Majin Buu, on the other hand, had some interesting support that did allow you to use the older Majin Buu cards, but again, it only was able to take advantage of the older support by kind of drawing out the turns and going later in the game to be able to play those older cards. When it came to the leader, I had mixed feelings about this card, mainly because I felt like its ability was kind of redundant. It kind of had the impression of energy manipulation in a way kind of similar to the Ultimate Box Vegeta leader, but this was not in a way to kind of take advantage of. It basically allowed you to swap one of the Majin Buu in your energy with a Majin Buu in your drop area, and I mean, you could kind of play around with it to be able to get the Majin Buu you wanted in your energy, since they all played off of the ones in your energy. But the leader just didn't feel like it did a whole lot. The only reason I even ran it was because it was a Majin Buu, and I used it because, like, Buu Make You Cookie required the Majin Buu leader, and you had a few other cards that required the Majin Buu leader, and that's really about it. Even on the Awakened side, it was the same kind of letdown of an ability. Like, it was just so underwhelming. The leader himself was cool, but the ability didn't really do a whole lot to support the archetype. I actually never really used the ability, and more just used the leader because he's a Majin leader. Which, at that point, I may as well use the Majin Buu from Colossal Warfare. Nope, from Crossworlds. But that leader's just not super great either. He does get to untap too, which is a little better than this one's untap one, draw one. But the reason I don't like that leader is because I don't like just the random cards you put at the top of your from the top of your deck underneath the leader for you to just lose cards. Like, it's not fun either. So either way, I feel like the Majin Buu leaders are just severely underwhelming and just don't really suit the archetype as well as they seem like they do on paper. While the leader himself was lacking, the support for the archetype, on the other hand, was just really phenomenal, especially with cards like Dawn of Evil. It was a 1-cost extra card. You got to look at the top 10 cards of your deck, choose a blue 1-3 drop, and add it to your hand, and then you got to untap an energy. So, while you could only play one a turn, it was a free search. Now, it didn't give you really card advantage because it was just replacing itself and giving you a card in the drop, but it was a really good card for the deck, and it was, in a way, it was kind of similar to the Goku's Lineage support card that lets you search a Goku's Lineage and add it to your hand. The only difference being that this did have an energy cost, but then you were going to untap a blue anyways, so may as well say it was a free card to play. Then we had Bring It Back Boo, which supported not only the new stuff, but I feel like it supported the older support better. Being able to play a blue at Majin Buu with an energy cost of 4 or less is not that helpful, but the fact that it doesn't have an energy restriction on the red Majin Buu card that you play with this card, that made it so much better and made it to where you could play mono blue, but it was almost better to do like a blue-red if you were going to play Bring Back Boo. It only had one blue specified energy on top of that, so it was a really good card to be able to run either both colors, or you could just kind of do majority of one with a splash of the other. And it even took a card from your took a battle card from your drop area to put underneath him. So if you were running the Gotenks Boo, you could put a Gotenks under him. If you're running Buuhan, you could put the Gohan under him. And it really just kind of set up your play for your bigger Majin Buu cards. The one cost Majin Buu, I don't really care for it. You get to crit yourself. Well, you didn't really crit yourself. You took a card from your life, add it to your hand. That's not really super great. And burst 3 for that, I don't like that. I would rather just run the original one-drop Majin Buu and just draw a card. And then you got to use him to swap with a Buu from your energy back to your hand. But again, it just felt like that didn't really do a whole lot. The 2-drop, on the other hand, was pretty nice. When you played him, you got to add a Majin back from your drop area to your hand. Any energy cost just had to be a blue one. Activate main for 1 energy. If your leader was a Majin card, you got to choose a blue one, energy cost 3 from your energy, and play it. This is where things got kind of interesting, because you could really only do this on turn 3, with the exception of if you happen to have Unyielding Spirit Trunks. God, for this deck in particular, I really wish we could have had 4. But you had 2 different options you could go. You could go with the Majin Buu Intensifying Evil, shown here, 3-drop, 19k. That's pretty damn good right there, in my personal opinion. His permanent allowed you to keep him alive. I never really had much use to do that, and dropping 2 cards is a pretty big deal. The fact that when he attacks, you got to choose a battle card 4 or less and put it at the bottom of its owner's deck is absolutely amazing. I used this particular card in my blue Majin Buu deck, and I played it during a tournament against the Skillless Goku deck, and kept putting back the Android 8. If I wasn't sucking it up with Buu Make You Cookie, it was going to the bottom of the deck every time. And so it was forcing him to keep searching it out, which wasn't helping his case at all, because then I could just murder all the Gokus in the process. But Majin Buu's just, even though it's not a top-tier deck, I feel like some of the support cards for Majin Buu are just so fantastic and perfect counters to some of the other decks that are in the meta. Kind of gives you a slight edge. The only downside is it does require you to run one of the 2 mediocre Majin Buu leaders. I don't like that, but there's got to be ways to work around it. I'm still trying to work around it now. I've actually got a Majin Buu deck I'm hoping to try out soon, and maybe I'll get that out to you with all the other deck profiles I promised you guys, and just can't find time to sit and do. This also gave you the option to play the 3-drop Majin Buu from Crossworlds, if you wanted to go that route as well, instead of going with the Intensifying Evil and going with the energy, bouncing, whatever you want to call it, strategy. I don't really like going that way, because it requires that you have the West Kai, or no, South Kai, to be able to take advantage of the 5-drop Blue Buu from Crossworlds, and he's just not super grand, especially because he can only bounce 3 or less. So I feel like this was the better way to go overall, just because Intensifying Evil is just a really good card, and you don't have to go the route of going from the 3-drop to the 4-drop to the 7-drop. If you wanted to, you could just play the 3-drop and just keep bouncing their stuff, and just use Bring Back Buu to bring out your bigger dudes from your energy. Going from Intensifying Evil, you're going to go into Prodigious Absorption Majin Buu, one of my all-time favorite SPRs, and I want to get a playset so bad. I hate the fact that I would need 8 SPRs, Majin Buus, for this deck, because that's a lot to have. This card's okay. It's not super great. It has Barrier, which is nice, but when you play it from the energy area, you got to place a battle card underneath him, so you're going to place a Gotenks underneath him, because once per turn, you can play a Majin token if Gotenks is underneath him. Same stats as a Gotenks token, so you could just use those. And then for 3 blue and 1 other, you got to put him in your energy, and you could play any Majin Buu card of 7 in your energy. Ideally, you're going to play the 7-drop that came in the set. You could also, I suppose, play the Buhan from Union Force, but without having anything underneath it, that Majin Buu is just not that great, and definitely not worth playing with that skill. I absolutely love the art on this card. I wish it was better to play. It's just really not. Even if you're going the route of the energy play strategy, you could even go from Intensifying Evil and go into Dawn of the Rampage, which is then going to bring out Awakening Evil that came out in Union Force, and then you can go that route and go into any Majin Buu in the deck. So, I feel like this particular card, as much as I love the card, it just wasn't necessary, and being able to spit out the token just didn't really do a whole lot either, so it's not a particular strategy that I prefer to go with. I do like going this route, but it doesn't seem like it's the best route if you're trying to be as competitive as possible. Ultimate Absorption Majin Buu was the final link in the chain, and this card was definitely not bad. Again, awesome SPR art. I actually love all the purple around it. Not as much as the Gotenks, but still fantastic card. This one is your finisher. He's got the triple strike. When you play him from the energy area, you got to choose a battle card and place it from the drop underneath him. If you had a Gohan, you got to switch him back to active mode, and he basically got to absorb one of your opponent's battle cards, which could be a very good thing, but I'm not super convinced that this is a more optimal play. I feel like the Grand Evil Absorption from Union Force might just be better. I don't know. It feels like it really depends on the situation, because if your opponent doesn't have a battle card, you can't really take advantage of the ability. And either way, in the end, for me, Ultimate Evil is always going to be your end game play. Everything else is just a means to an end. So, going into a 7-drop is going to be one of the final plays, but I don't know, this card just feels kind of slightly lacking. You could put the Dawn of the Rampage underneath him to give him barrier for that extra level of protection. But he still just doesn't seem as powerful as a card as Grand Evil Absorption is. Then for our second leader, we got another Wish leader, Dende on the front, Goku on the back. I don't know. Getting leaders like this, they're kind of cool, but again, it doesn't fit any particular theme, so you're just playing it for the sake of being able to abuse Wish cards and being able to go with the whole Dragon Ball Wish mechanic, which more or less allows you to, awaken earlier than you would with an actual awaken leader. But you can't include extra cards with energy cost of 4 or more in the deck. Not really that big of a deal, I suppose. The Activate main has the same ability as, say, the Shenron leader, except you have to burst 2 to be able to do it. So, a slight cost to it. I guess it's kind of Bandai trying to rectify how overpowered Shenron was, but that doesn't really do anything if Shenron is still a better card to play. The only difference here is this is a blue leader. And I don't know, it again still doesn't seem as powerful. When you use his Dragon Ball ability, you got to draw 2 cards, switch 2 energy back to active mode. But that was all you got to do. Unless the deck you were playing was able to take advantage of those extra 2 energy, then I'm not really sure I see the point. The first thing that kind of comes to mind would be, for me personally, I know the leader has been doing well and is one of the higher tiered leaders, but for me, I would just rather play Shenron. Because the only difference between playing this or playing the Shenron leader, to me, is Unyielding Spirit Trunks. The leader did absolutely nothing for the other blue archetype, which was Vegito Majin Buu Saga. Personally, I think we should have got a Vegito leader. Now, I know we did get one in set 7, but that's Future Trunks Saga. It's two separate times in the anime, 2 separate iterations of Vegito. It should have been a Vegito leader that kind of played off of this strategy. These cards I absolutely loved, though. I liked them actually more than the Majin Buu, even though they were functionally the same as far as playing the cards from the energy. It felt like the Vegito was a little bit better. I don't know. It felt like there was just a little bit more consistency. The Goku's really cool. When you played him, you got to pull out this Vegito for free, and so that right there gave you your fusion materials. The Vegito lets you reset an energy. So then you bring out this Vegito for 1 energy, and then you got to draw a card. If you use them with Union, you got to draw another card. So you got to replace the Goku and the Vegeta, so you weren't losing any card advantage. His ability lets you put him in your energy to play a Vegito from your energy. It had to be the same amount of energy you had. So you could play the World's Strongest Candy Vegito, which I just love the fact that we got this as a card, because it was just the coffee-flavored candy was just one of the best things about the Majin Buu side, was just seeing Vegito beat the shit out of Majin Buu as a friggin' jawbreaker. The card could only be played from the energy, though. Both the 3-drop and the 4-drop had that restriction, so you had to play them via the energy mechanic. The Majin Buu cards did not have that restriction, so in a way, I guess that was one thing that the Majin Buu cards had that the Vegito archetype did not have. The World's Strongest Candy had the same ability to put himself in energy and play another Vegito. You'd only do that once per turn, though. So ideally, you're going to go into the Goku, bring out the Vegeta, play the 3-drop Vegito, attack with him, use his ability, put him in the energy, bring out World's Strongest Candy. World's Strongest Candy gets to attack, and then you're going to activate his ability, put him back in the energy, bring out the first Vegito, get to draw another card. You could attack again with him if you wanted, or you could just not, keep him on the board, and wait till next turn, and you could use the 4-drop. The 4-drop wasn't great, wasn't anything spectacular. I feel like the Vegito archetype was unfinished. Like, there should have been another Vegito to play. Like, you had the 4 cost, which was nice, but it felt similar to the Majin Buu stuff, where you hit that 4 cost, except there was no 7-drop. There was no finisher Vegito. I mean, sure, you had double strike and all, but that really wasn't a super big deal. He got to KO a card that had barrier, but again, if they didn't have anything, you weren't KOing anything anyways. And he just kind of felt a little underwhelming to be a finisher. Now, what I like to do with this deck is you run it in you run it mono blue, and you could run it with a blue leader as well, and I ran the Super Saiyan Blue Vegito that basically is a deadly defender from the Ultimate box. So you run that Vegito, because he's also a 4 cost. So you can, on turn 4, or turn 5 if you wanted to wait for that draw, you could play him from the energy just like you would any of these other Vegitos. Also, I like to use the Bursting Energy Vegito from the tournament pack from Union Force, because he's a blue Vegito. Now he's a 6 cost, so you're gonna play him later in the game, but he's got energy manipulation, and so I like to play all that stuff, and you play it with the Soul Striker Goku leader. And it's just a lot of untap to be able to do your plays. You got the leader untapping stuff, you've got your 1 unyielding trunks, you got Sensu beans, you got a lot of stuff that allows you to do a lot of things. The only downside is cards like Borgos suck. But that's when you just run a little bit of removal, and then you can go about your way. Tien is the real thing that kind of screws this over, because Tien, I mean, aside from the fact that he doesn't let you switch your energy anyways, it isn't one of those cards where, oh, you get it off the board, and then you can go about your day. Once he's played, his ability kicks in, bam, you're just stuck with it. Now, we did get more counter cards in set 7, so you could counter the Tien and then still be able to do all your energy stuff. But the downside there is the blue counter, you bounce it back to your hand. So if you're bouncing the card back to their hand, they're going to just be able to do it to you on the next turn. and or even that same turn if they meet the requirements for the energy reduction. So it's just, the deck could have been great. It needed a little bit better of a push, maybe a leader that supported the archetype, and then a good finisher to go along with it. I'm still working on trying to make it work. Maybe with all the new blue support we got in set 7, the counterplays and such, maybe it will have a little bit more viability. But I definitely am still working on that, and I will let you guys know as soon as I figure out something worthwhile. As for generic blue support, blue got a little bit of stuff. We got another sparking super combo. This time it's Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. Now, initially you're probably like, well, okay, well we already had that. We got Gohan in set 5. But this is actually a good thing because now you can play the Majin Buu stuff differently. Because you've got the Gohan super combo and now a Gotenks super combo. So you don't have to run extra Gohans or Gotenks in the deck. You can just run whichever super combo you're needing. Now, if you're going with Grand Evil Absorption Majin Buu, you're still going to need a good Gohan. Probably the Miraculous Comeback from Union Force. Because obviously if you use a super combo for his ability, he's not going to gain an ability that you want to use. So in that case, you would want to run more Gohans. But if you're just running the new Majin Buu engine in set 6, you could just run either of the super combos, or you could do 2 and 2 like I did. Then we got a kind of generic blue negate. Really just not worth playing in my opinion. It's cool that it's Vegeta's energy sword piercing Buu, but just kind of a useless card. The Wish card, on the other hand, is super nice, allowing you to bring out a blue Saiyan from your drop area. Nice little Wish, goes along with the Wish leader. Again, it felt like a weaker Child's Wish. Honestly, like Child's Wish, there's a reason Child's Wish got banned. That is exactly why. Now cards like this would see a little bit more play now, because Child's Wish is gone, perhaps. But Wish Leaders seem to have kind of fallen out of favor for the most part. I would like to see them kind of make a comeback, with the exception of, like, I understand the Shenron Leader's good, but it's boring as hell to play against if your opponent just stalls for 5 or 6 turns until they get their ace card out, and then they just triple attack you to death. Just really not fun. The Goku and Vegeta that came in this set were really interesting cards. The Goku, you would just place cards underneath him. You hit 7, he gets triple strike, he gets 5,000 for each card underneath him. He's hitting for a shit ton once you finally get him stacked up. And then, of course, there were cards that you could use to put cards underneath a card. Obviously, him. The Vegeta wasn't terrible either. A really nice, decent card for wiping your opponent's board. Unfortunately, it bounces everything back to the hand instead of KOing them, but not a bad ability. And it's only a 3 cost, so it's not like it's terribly difficult to get out. You could even be kind of cheeky and use the Comrades Combined Goku to play it. It's got 20,000 power as well, so you could sneak in a good attack before activating his ability. Now, this Vegeta would actually not be a bad counter to the new Zamasu deck that came out in set 7. If they're playing the token strategy, and they're going to swarm their board with tokens, they got the free blocker, you could just play this Vegeta and pass your turn or attack with it, and then pass your turn, and you're going to bounce all of those battle cards back to their hand, which, since they're tokens, they don't go back to the hand, and they just poof and disappear. So, an interesting card you could use to counter the Zamasu deck. I like the Vegeta card. I think he had some decent potential for wiping the board with Swarm. Now, granted, we also have the new black extra card that could kind of do that same thing with the unexpected turn, and that only costs 1 energy, but that has the wording of energy cost of 2 or less, so it's not going to get around tokens because tokens don't have an energy cost, and therefore the ruling doesn't apply to them. So with that in particular strategy, you're still better off with a card like this Vegeta, or even if you wanted to use the Ghost Rampage Go tanks to be able to get around those tokens as well.